Am I the a-hole for not returning my engagement ring after my fiancé passed away? I, 31 female, recently lost my fiancé, 37 male, Jake. We've been together for 6 years, and his death was unexpected and I'm still mourning. At a funeral, which I arranged and paid for, his brother, 32 male, Jim, asked me when I'm going to return the engagement ring to the family. For context, the engagement ring with which Jake proposed is an ancient family heirloom. It's a gorgeous ring, but what makes it priceless is the story behind it. Jake got the ring from his grandma a month after we started dating, as he claimed he knew back then he would marry me someday and wanted to get his grandma's blessings on the ring. When he proposed, his grandma already passed away, so having the blessings put on the ring made it extra special for the both of us. I asked Jim if he's serious, to which he said yes. Apparently, his long-term girlfriend Stacy saw the ring a while ago and fell in love with it and the story behind it, so she kept nagging him to get her something similar, which he couldn't. He figured since I can no longer marry Jake, he can propose to Stacy with it. I told him that he is rude, that the ring was blessed especially for Jake and I in mind. And even if that wasn't the case, bringing it up during Jake's funeral is incredibly disrespectful. After the funeral, I got a message from Stacy saying it would mean the world for her to be the new owner of the ring, and I could always think of her and Jim's wedding as the bittersweet ending to my relationship. She said the ring was blessed, so one of the grandsons can marry the love of his life, and since Jim is the only living grandson left, he has a claim to it. I just blocked her. My ex-mother-in-law also reached out to me and said that although she understands my pain, I can't keep the ring since it's a family heirloom, so I should suck it up and give it to Jim. I snapped and told her no. The ring is staying with me and following me to the grave if need be. It's a beautiful symbol of Jake's love, and I won't let Jim and Stacy sully the memory of him. The ring is legally mine, so all they can do is cry about it and be bitter. They keep harassing me on social media saying I'm a bad person, and that I stole the family heirloom to spite Jim and Stacy out of jealousy, but I ignore them. Today, I met up with my brother and he said that although Jim's approach was highly inappropriate and being selfish for keeping the ring as a keepsake, I could always wear different jewelry that Jake bought me in his memory, but they could never replace an heirloom that's been in their family for generations. I'm now back home and I can't stop thinking about it. Up until this point, I was sure I did everything right, but maybe I'm just being blinded by my grief. A friend suggested I ask for an objective opinion and recommend this place. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the little update. Since you paid for the funeral and they didn't, offer to sell them the ring back for the cost of the funeral. If you're not family entitled to keep the heirloom in their opinion, you shouldn't have had to pay for the funeral expenses. The brother was an a-hole to ask for it at the funeral. Otherwise, keep it. Not the a-hole. Exactly my thoughts as well. They didn't chip in a cent, it seems, for the death of their son or brother. You were family enough to pay for the funeral. You were family enough to have grandmother's blessing. You were family enough to your partner. The ring is yours, OP. The memory is yours. Gift it to someone whose love you want to bless, if you so choose. Otherwise, do what makes you happy, not a-hole. This is exactly how I feel about it. It's not like OP just showed up. They'd been together for 6 years, and the owner of the ring gave it for her. The brother approached her at the funeral that OP arranged and paid for and asked for the ring. That was horrifically inappropriate and cold-hearted. So, in the middle of the funeral, I feel like I can't stress this enough, the brother demanded the ring back, and now over however many days or weeks of grieving, several people are harassing OP for this ring. The ring given to her by her fiancé, that again was given by her grandmother. Not a-hole OP. Please just block them all. What kills me is the fact his girlfriend says to see them marry as a bittersweet ending to her relationship. If I was in her shoes and with how they approached, I understand wanting a family heirloom back. But they didn't help with the funeral. It was all being extremely insensitive towards her losing someone she loves. I wouldn't want to do them any favors either. Not sure if it'd be grief, spite, or right on my end, but they certainly could have handled that a lot better. Not a-hole. They don't want it back because it's a family heirloom. They want it back because Stacy is shallow and Jim can't spend the money. If he could buy the same ring, they wouldn't care, but are using the family BS to manipulate you. Tacky and disgusting. I can't possibly imagine asking someone who lost their husband for the engagement ring back. Now for the little update. I'm writing this to answer some commonly asked questions and because I think I've made up my mind on what to do with the ring. 1. I met Jake's grandma. She passed away a year before our engagement, and by that time I was already introduced to the family. 2. We were supposed to get married on October 31, 2022. We met during a Halloween party, so we thought it was fitting. My brother helped me cancel the wedding venue and catering since I didn't have the heart to do it. 3. We don't have children. Due to personal reasons, we never planned on having any biological kids. However, we did plan on adopting/fostering after our marriage was finalized. 4. Stacy did mention a couple of times how gorgeous my engagement ring is and asked if she could try it on, but I refused. Back then, I thought she was just trying to hint to Jim he should propose already. Didn't think she was actually interested in the ring itself. 5. The ring is legally mine. In Jake's will, I'm written as the beneficiary. The will was written 2 years ago and hasn't been changed since. 6. Jake passed away in a work-related accident. I claimed life insurance, plus sued the company he worked at since I believe his death was due to their negligence and could have been avoided. I'm currently in the legal battle with the company. 7. I paid for the funeral because I wanted to make sure everything was organized the way Jake would have wanted it. As horrible as it sounds, I was financially well off before Jake's death, and now due to his will, life insurance and company compensation, I'm practically rich. So I had the funds to organize him a really nice funeral. 8. When I told ex-mother-in-law that I'll take the ring to my grave, I meant it. When Jake passed, I considered joining him a couple of times before finally starting going to therapy. I don't think I'll ever date or get engaged again. It's too painful. 9. As for my decision, I would rather wait for the hell to freeze over than let Stacy and Jim get a ring. For now, the ring is staying with me. However, I'm considering the following option. Jake has one cousin, 10 female, that lives far away. I used to babysit her while her parents still live in town. I think I'll gift her the ring after she graduates high school and pay for her college tuition using the life insurance money I got. I hope that way I can do right by both Jake and his grandma. They say time heals. Hopefully 8 years will be enough for me to let go of the ring. If not, I guess we'll see then. I'm not telling anyone in his family what I have planned. Let them think they've lost the ring forever. I think it's a punishment fit for their actions. By the way, I lost a comment that said this, but someone compared Stacy to Gollum. I don't know who it was, but this genuinely made me laugh for the first time in a while. Thank you. Next story. Am I the a-hole for yelling at my boyfriend for making me leave my best friend's wedding? My boyfriend, 27, and I, 26, have been together for 2 years. He's a good heart and is normally rational, but his one issue is that he expects to accompany me in every occasion, no matter how big or small. He even went with me to my ex-boyfriend's funeral after days of begging. Now, my best friend got married a few days ago. It was very small, and only close family and friends were invited. My boyfriend couldn't come because of the +1 rule, and he pitched a hissy fit, saying my best friend has no respect for my relationship, and was shocked when he learned that I was still going to attend. He told me that if he can't go, then I'm expected to not go as well. But that is my best friend, and I had to respect her rules. He gave me an ultimatum that either we go together or I stay home with him. I ended up going because, again, I respected my friend's rules. He was angry with me and kept calling the entire 2-hour drive, then stopped. Later, I got a text from his friend telling me he, my boyfriend, got into an accident and was taken to the hospital. I freaked out. He gave me the address and I had to leave the wedding and told my friends why. I was crying the entire drive home and kept calling his friend, but got no response. I arrived to the hospital and asked about my boyfriend, and they checked and told me he wasn't there. My anxiety reached 160% as I kept calling his friends one by one. I just went home, and there he was, along with his friend. He saw me and said he was sorry, but this was the only way he can get me home after I left him alone. After the initial shock, I just blew up yelling at him about lying and making me leave my friend's wedding, and having me literally go to the hospital and freaking out because of him. I kicked his friend out and we got into an argument. He kept talking about how much I love him, thus I left, which is my own doing, not his, and he was just trying to see if I really chose my friend's wedding over him. He then argued that my friend caused this and I shouldn't agree with her to exclude him. I said what he did was horrible and called him horrible, and then went to my room. It was awful because my friends kept calling to check in on him because they thought he was really at a hospital. He said I overreacted and that I yelled at the wrong person. Am I the a-hole? Did I go too far? Info. He has a history of mental health issues but got better the past few months. He also had a recent death in his family which really affected his health generally. Now for the comments. This is abuse. Opie's boyfriend doesn't love her. He loves controlling her. This is absolutely abuse, and Opie hasn't gone far enough yet. Not until she is out of this toxic relationship. Not a-hole. I was about to come here to make exactly this post, but let me add that the boyfriend does not indeed have a good heart if he lies about being hospitalized. I couldn't imagine the anguish and guilt that likely followed. He clearly doesn't care about your feelings or well-being if he's willing to resort to that to get his way. You're not a-hole, but there's really no saving this relationship. I don't care if this adds to the stereotype that Reddit tells people to leave too soon, but everyone else is right. Abuse just doesn't get better. Even if he somehow wakes up and starts trying to make it better, you have no responsibility to him to stick around until it does. I hope she recognizes that. She seems to think it's a one-time thing, but his insistence on accompanying her everywhere is hugely controlling and frankly suffocating. My wife and I love spending time together, but we also enjoy doing things with other people on our own. People who have confidence in their relationship and who trust their partner don't have a problem with this. Her boyfriend has some serious issues and she needs to run. If she decides to stay, she needs to see a therapist. Somebody who can make her see that this is not rational behavior and she should not tolerate it. Not a-hole. This is called coercive control and is a form of domestic violence. You should leave for sure. This. Opie, I dated a guy like this in my early 20s. It does not get better. Run! Opie needs to be very careful leaving. She needs to find a safe house that boyfriend doesn't know about. Yep. I had a friend who dated a guy who constantly threatened to end himself over things like her forgetting something at the grocery store or not staying home with him when he had a cold. It kept her nervous and on eggshells, careful not to upset the a-hole. I was so happy when she finally kicked that useless a-hole to the curb. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for siding with my mother when she and my wife got into an argument? My wife and I had our first child around 2 months ago. She was home isolated during her entire pregnancy after the 6-month mark because of some pregnancy complications. We had also agreed that the first 2 months after birth that our parents and siblings would be the only ones allowed to visit and see the baby, and our friends and the rest of the relatives could wait. As soon as the baby turned 2 months, my wife started trying to get back into her social life again. Sometimes she'd bring the baby with her, but sometimes she'd expect me to babysit. Whenever I couldn't babysit, she'd call her mom to ask her if she could care for the baby for a few hours. My wife's a great mom and she truly cares for our baby, but it's frustrating how she feels the need to go out the entire time. One day, while she was out shopping with a friend of hers, I was babysitting the kid, and my mom visited me and asked where my wife was. I told her that she's out with a friend. My mom got very mad about how my wife went out, and she told me I have no backbone for not calling her out and telling her to stay home with the baby. I told my mom I'll handle this, but my mom waited until my wife got back home and she started scolding her. It wasn't a proud moment of me, and I really didn't want my mom to get involved, but my wife needed to hear it from someone else too. My mom told my wife that she is irresponsible and that she should cut down her meetings with friends and stay home to care for the kid as a proper mother would. My wife tried to defend herself, saying how I was always out with my friends both during her pregnancy and after she gave birth. But both I and my mom tried to explain how me going out is not the same as her going out. My mom told her that the little walks and coffee hangouts with her friends are over, and that she better get used to the fact that her social life will now be limited. It sucks, but that's how it is. I agreed with my mother and all that, and my wife is not speaking to me for days. She even sleeps in the guest room now and took the baby's crib there as well. She will only cook for herself and the baby and not for me. My mother-in-law and my sister-in-law have texted me saying I was a huge a-hole for this, and so was my mom. So I should not be surprised my wife is acting like that towards me. You're the a-hole. Notice how you say taking care of your own kid is babysitting? You didn't even mention the amount of time she goes out versus you, but you just want us to trust you that it's different for you? You don't even mention speaking to your wife before your mom said anything. Too bad your wife has 2 kids at home. Hopefully she sees the light and leaves the whiny entitled one. Genuinely hoping she gives that entitled one back to his mother. You're the a-hole simply for referring to look after your own child as babysitting. Yep, absolute he's the a-hole. I'm not gonna lie, I only read as far as babysitting the kid and that was enough for me. I knew I was going to put you're the a-hole just from the title, but good lord, you really suck. You and your wife decided to become a family and team when you got married, even before the baby. Your mom is now extended family. She should never feel comfortable to scold your wife, especially in her own home. And that's your job to set the boundary. Both of you are the parents to that baby. You are not babysitting, you are being a parent. I'm going to assume your wife stays home with the baby and you are the breadwinner. So not only are you interacting with adults daily, but you're getting an uninterrupted lunch break, and even getting alone time in the car and to run any errands before or after work. Your wife is home with the baby completely dependent on her all day long. She has to stop everything for feedings. She can't just take a nap, take a shower, or even go to the bathroom without listening and worrying about the baby. She deserves time with other adults or even just herself to remain sane. Postpartum depression is so serious, and unsupportive spouse increases it so much. He literally went out while she was on bed rest. She probably felt so isolated and alone, worrying if this new baby she was responsible for growing would be okay, and you were out with friends. But God forbid she shops for a few hours. Don't be surprised if she leaves you with your mommy in the future. I hate when part-time parent says they babysit, normally complaining about how the full-time parent needs a break and they feel forced to babysit. You're the a-hole. Want $200,000, but I won't tell my husband. Plus updates. Original post. I, 26 female, and my husband, 26 male, have been married for almost 2 years. For the past year, I've been the breadwinner, and I'm not okay with this. Hubby lost his job after some budget cuts, and since then, he's been doing nothing but play video games. At first, he went to interviews, but that stopped after 2 months. And no, he isn't doing any chores either. We used to split chores 50-50, but now he isn't even doing his 50%. So, I'm financially supporting both of us while also doing 100% of the chores. I've discussed this with my mother-in-law and father-in-law, and they had a talk with him. Father-in-law even got him a couple interviews. That, by the way, he missed because he was playing and he forgot to go. 2 weeks ago, father-in-law called him and scolded him. Father-in-law told him he raised him better than to leech off me and not even help with household chores. He told him he needs to get his act together and start doing his chores and look for a job because a marriage is 50-50, and right now I'm doing 100% of everything. He ended the call by telling him he was very disappointed. My husband always had this thing about making his dad proud. So he started looking for a job and even went on 2 interviews. Now, last week, I went on a trip with some friends and we went to a casino where I won $200,000. I haven't told my husband, and I don't know if I will. I'm afraid if I do, he will go back to doing nothing, excusing that as we don't need money, that I could hire someone for the housework. Before you ask, our finances are separate and he doesn't have access to my bank account, so I don't think he will find out. I will also like to add that I want to use some of the money to pay my student loans. What's left after that, I want to put them in savings. We are discussing the possibility of having kids, and if we decide to expand our family, I want my kids to have a college fund. But I'm also reconsidering having kids with a man that needs to be scolded by his parents in order for him to do his part in the relationship. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Your finances aside, send your husband to therapy. He's horribly depressed. This is what I'm thinking. All these people are saying he's a deadbeat lazy bum, but she said he used to work and contribute to the household evenly. Also, that he thrives to make his dad proud. It sounds more like depression than this just being who he is. Exactly why I said this. If it were his personality, this would have always been the case, but the fact that there's such a big change is a huge tell. Honestly, I'm not really sure why people are telling you to baby your husband. If he has a problem, he needs to address it. I've been in the exact same situation, and it nearly freaking killed me, and he didn't give a hoot. All the attraction to him went out the window because he refused to help himself. A swift dose of reality will do the trick for most people. These are people, however, who, like OP's significant other, would rather leech off friends and family like a succubus rather than put in their fair share. Classic Reddit. Most people going straight to divorce him instead of advising to get him some therapy or psychological help. He might be depressed after losing his job, and I can say from experience that having your parents scold you might not be enough to get you to do better. Freaking hell. Imagine if every single relationship problem was resolved with a breakup. Reddit is full of virgins and people who've never been in a relationship. They have no idea what they're talking about. Now for the first update. I posted this in another sub, and someone made question if he was really laid off because of budget cuts or if that's a lie. So, I talked with one of his former colleagues and he told a different story. According to him, my husband left because I made enough to support both of us, so he didn't need to work. I went home but he was playing as usual, so I called for him. I think he forgot his door was open because I heard him tell his gaming buddy, "My witch is home." I lost it at that. I don't know how I managed to stay composed, but a lot of people pointed out that he may be depressed, so I tried to talk to him. This is how it went. Me, I'm very unhappy with how things are right now. I work to support both of us, and I'm also doing all the household chores. It's not fair. You have a gaming problem. I think you should go to therapy and maybe we can try couples counseling too. Him, I don't see the issue. I like games. So what? Me, okay. Have you found a job yet? Him, no. Me, I know you weren't fired. Why did you quit? Him, I didn't. After an hour, he finally admitted that he doesn't want to work, and he never looked for jobs either. All the interviews he went to were actually outings with friends. He doesn't want to work because we don't need the money. So I said okay, I'm fine with being the sole provider, but then he needs to do the chores. He said no, that he would rather play games. So I handed him the divorce papers. He said I'm overreacting, and that I would still work and do all chores if I was alone. So why can't I just do it? We got into a fight where I did end up telling him about the money. His reaction was exactly the one I was afraid of. He suggested getting a maid. So I'm currently staying with my sister. I'm not backing up with a divorce. And for those of you that are worried, he has no right over the money. We have a prenup, so after the divorce, each leaves with what's in our names. So he won't see $1. My lawyer reassured me of that. Second update. Hubby is crying, begging me to reconsider. He's promising to get a job and lay off on gaming. I don't know if I should laugh or cry, but damn, I don't believe anything he says. He also apologized for calling me a witch and swears he'll do all house chores and get a full-time job. It's kind of pathetic, but nonetheless, if divorce is the only way to get him to participate, I don't want to always need to print papers every time he isn't doing anything. I told him I'm not going to reconsider, because his actions showed me he isn't someone that I can count on. I want a family, not slavery. I want to be a mother, but for that, I need a partner that I can count on if I need someone to pick up where I slack. Safe to say, he left crying saying I don't love him and that no one will want me. Next story. My wife died 11 months ago and our lives are better. Yes, I am a monster for saying this. And yes, we have a young child together. About 11 months ago, my wife was killed in an auto accident that was not her fault. I won't give specifics for fear of being identified. My wife's mental health had steadily declined over the past 6 to 7 years. She had become a compulsive shopper, hoarder, depression, anxiety, verbally abusive to me, gaslighting, etc. This was not who I dated and married. Yes, I still loved her. When her mental health was great, best family unit in the world. But when she spiraled, it was just nasty the way she would treat us. Yes, she was in therapy and yes, she had medication. She was diagnosed as bipolar. We discovered suppressed childhood trauma in a therapy session. Not the sexual kind, but horrible parents. Recalling lack of food, but money for smokes. Living in a hotel for nearly a year. No Christmas presents. Parents fighting physically in front of her, etc. She had suppressed this and recreated different memories. The last 4 years were hell, never knowing how she would be in the morning, seeing her become hostile over me sneezing too loud, or our daughter flushing the toilet during her shows. I felt like a prisoner, and my child did her best to understand that mommy's brain doesn't work right. When I got a call that I needed to come to the hospital, I honestly thought she tried to end herself, and was hoping she did. When I got to the hospital, time froze. The doctor and the nurse brought me to a room. They said she died of blunt force trauma. I cried, but it was a cry of relief. When my mom brought my daughter home, she cried too, but I think for the same reason I did. Today, I am in a better place, and so is my child. We have dinners with no yelling. We visit family and friends without getting text accusing me of cheating. My child is not getting yelled at for not understanding her homework. Hell, she still gives me a hug and kiss when I drop her off at school. I have exited therapy, however, my daughter said she still wants to go, so she does. My daughter wants to know about her mom before her mental health issues, and that is how she will be remembered. She was given a proper burial buried next to her grandpa, and we visit the grave about once a week. We got a decent settlement for the accident, paid off our home, and I put the rest in trust for when the kid turns 18. I recently started dating a friend. It's so weird. I'm not used to normal dates or having another adult ask me how my day was. She made me breakfast, and I forgot what it was like to have someone care for me. Thank you for reading. I just came here to say that you're not a monster. It's hard seeing someone you love go through something like this. My mother is bipolar, and I have thoughts sometimes that definitely scare me. I'm glad you're happy now and can finally live the life you wanted. Sounds like wife was very bad, and especially alarming that she was acting that way towards the child as well. From what I can see, she wasn't taking therapy/medication and other activities close enough to action. And the mistreatment started ramping up basically after they had a child together. Repeated false accusation of cheating, flying off the handle at minor inconveniences like they're horrendous, etc. are unacceptable, especially towards a child, and when showing no signs of stopping or the perp addressing them. At that stage of boundaries being consistently ignored or impossible to set, relationship has to end for the safety of the kid and their upbringing. Even without a kid, a relationship like that is rotten and must end. Victim doesn't deserve to be treated this way. Exposure and victimhood to DV severely harms children. And OP, if you haven't already, get your kid DV counseling/therapy. Otherwise, your kid is at risk of developing severe issues and mental illness. People like your wife are rarely just horrible with no trauma or illness of their own. There's almost always some underlying thing, like OP's wife's case, that influences it. But as difficult as it is, the behavior cannot remain in a relationship, especially if it's continuously escalating, and there's a refusal by that person to address the root causes and recognize what they're doing. At that mark, no one benefits at all from the relationship. The person's actions will get worse, and root trauma will be coped with by hurting others. Victim is traumatized by repeatedly being attacked, and child is traumatized to dangerous extents. I think you need to put the house in a trust for her too, since it was paid off with money you got for the settlement. Just in case you marry someone and anything happens to you, she will have rights to your house. I had not thought of that. Good idea. Also, if you haven't already, update your will now. That broke my heart to read, pal. Glad you're doing good now. I'm not asking to be an a-hole, but why couldn't you have left her? Because I loved her mainly. But also, I could not afford a divorce. She would have won alimony, and due to my work schedule, most likely full custody, making me a weekend dad. Last story. I have imaginary dates with my late husband every week. I just wanted to let this out. I've never told anyone about this, and I've never used Reddit before, so bear with me. I'm a 36-year-old woman, and I lost my husband 11 years ago. Every Saturday night, we would go out on date. We started when we were 16 and he got his license, every single week until we were 25 and he was taken from me. It was really, really hard for me. I had more than a few grippy sock vacations. I broke everything in my home out of sadness. Fortunately, it was after I moved a lot of his things to our bedroom, so nothing of his was harmed. I was in grief counseling for 4 years, until they finally gave me off to another therapist who I see twice a week. All I ever talk about is how much I miss my husband. The only thing that brings me happiness is my loyalty to him. It's something I'm very, very proud of. Even though he's gone, I still wear my rings, and I've stayed 100% faithful to him, and I'm going to continue to do that for the rest of my life. It makes me happy when I think about it. One day, when I see him in heaven, I'll be able to tell him I stayed faithful to him, and I'm still his wife forever. I have his senior portrait on my bedside along with his ashes. It's the first and last thing I see every day. One thing that helps me cope with it is kind of weird. I have imaginary date nights with him. I put on his favorite dress, I'll put on my makeup and do my hair. I cook one of his favorite meals. I make both of us a plate and I just sit there and eat. And I pretend he's across from me and we're eating together. Then I pour both of us a glass of champagne. I've always hated the taste, and before he passed, I was 100% sober my entire life. But it makes me feel like I'm connected to him when I drink it, as he loved champagne. I'll pretend he's drinking it too and we'll get a little tipsy together. Then I'll take him upstairs and go into the bathroom and put on some lingerie for him. Then he watches me take it off, and then I go into the bottom of my drawer. And I have a toy that's the same size as his member, and I use it and pretend it's him and we're being intimate. I moan his name really loud when I do it too. Then the next morning I wake up and I clean everything up. I clean up his food that obviously was never touched, and his full glass of champagne, and I go about my day. I know it seems crazy, but it's something that brings me joy. It makes me happy. And please don't try to convince me to not stay loyal to my husband. Staying loyal to him brings me true happiness. And if you have a problem with that, please just keep that to yourself. I'm sorry. I feel really sad reading this. Love has such patience, and that's why love is beautiful and sad at the same time. Opie, do whatever makes you happy. No one is gonna judge you. You live your life the way you want it. If you want to have dates with the love of your life, do it. If you want to love him until the last day of your life, love him as much as you want. At my first big kid job, I worked closely with a bookkeeper, a lovely woman, and a great painter whom I adored. Her husband had died many years before our meeting, and while she spoke of him often enough, she only ever spoke of his death once in the time we knew each other. I don't remember the conversation exactly. I just remember her saying that he had been sick for a while there, but now he's just invisible. That struck me, and so did the way she said it. Like his death was just an aesthetic side effect of an otherwise benign condition, one they laughed about together, like a little inside joke between them. She didn't elaborate beyond that, and she didn't need to. It was plain on her face that the love they shared was just as alive in that moment as it was before he up and turned invisible on her. I'll never know the story of their relationship, or how she arrived at her perspective on the loss she had suffered. But I do know that whenever I'm faced with loss or grief, I think about Mary and her invisible husband, and I can't help but smile. I think connections between people have a much longer shelf life than people themselves. And with that in mind, I hope you continue to enjoy the heck out of your date nights. My husband died a year ago, and in my dreams when he's there, it doesn't feel like a dream. It feels like he's actually there. We are always talking about something. We did a lot of that. It feels like I should be able to touch him, but I can't. All those weird things that make a dream are never there when he is. I wake up from the dream and it feels like he's probably still there. I just can't see him anymore. This is why I'm scared of getting too attached. This is just so sad and heartbreaking. Hey dude, don't let it stop you from forming close and beautiful connections in your life. It can sometimes hurt to love something/someone so deeply, but the rewards outweigh it, and ultimately nothing is permanent. I'm more scared of never forming such connections. How fortunate are we to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard? Update. My 37 male, wife's 34 female sister, 29 female, try to kiss me and now my wife is spiraling. Help me. Original post. As the title says, my wife's sister made a pass at me at a recent family gathering, and I have no idea what to do. For context, I think my wife Jenna's absolutely gorgeous, but she has some really negative body image issues. This is in large part because of her sister Mary, who is very conventionally attractive, as opposed to Jenna's more unconventional but, in my opinion, striking beauty. Mary was a successful model until a couple years ago, and now works in the fashion industry. In our early days of dating, when I would tell Jenna she's beautiful, she would always say, "Just wait until you see my sister." When I did finally meet her family, she would randomly press me for weeks to talk about her sister, whether I thought she was more attractive than her, etc. I always told her the truth, that I think Mary's attractive in a boring way and that I think my wife is much more beautiful and interesting to look at. She wouldn't let it go, until I confronted her about how uncomfortable it made me and asked her what was going on. This is when she told me that she always had a chip on her shoulder about her looks because of being compared with her sister growing up. They fell into the classic smart one/pretty one dynamic their whole lives. She also said Mary had a habit of being flirty with all of her exes and warned me that it would happen to me eventually. She then started sobbing and begging me to not cheat on her with her sister, to which I forcefully said I would never cheat on her with anyone, let alone with her sister. I've been crazy about my wife since day one, and there's literally no woman on earth who could come close to her. I honestly didn't believe her about the flirting at first. I assumed it was just an extension of her insecurity, but I was wrong. Whenever we get together with my wife's family, Mary always finds ways to touch me and make little innuendo/comments about me or my body. It's super uncomfortable for everyone, especially my wife, and I've called her out on it before. She'll cool it for a while but eventually start doing it again. It's been 6 years of this, and every time it happens, my wife is upset for days that I have to do a lot of reassuring. On to the current problem. A few days ago, we were at my mother-in-law's birthday party and Mary asked me to help her grab some things from the garage. As soon as we walked into the garage, she turned and pressed me up against the door with her whole body and started trying to kiss me. I immediately pushed her off and asked her what the heck she was doing. She started giggling and saying she was just doing what we both have been thinking and kept insisting, "You know you want to." I told her she was out of her mind and ran out of there and went straight to my wife and told her we were leaving. The whole ride home she was asking me what was wrong. I wasn't sure whether to tell her because I knew how much it was going to hurt, but I also thought Mary would probably try to spin it as me making a move on her. So I knew I had to just say it. So I told her everything and she cried the whole way home. For the last several days, Mary has been calling and texting my wife doing exactly what I thought she would do, even telling my wife that I said she, Mary, was the hottest girl I've ever seen, which I had to reassure my wife a million times that I did not and would never say that, even though she believes my account of the situation. She's been a complete wreck the last several days. She's hardly eating, and she pulls away from my touch when I try to hug her or just hold her hand. She says she feels hideous and disgusting and I don't know what to do. This is the lowest I have ever seen her, and it hurts to see how much she's hurting. I have no idea what to do to help her heal from this. Guys, what should I do? Now for the top advice before reading the update. All family gatherings that include Mary must now be non-attendable. Your wife knows what an awful woman her sister is, and hopefully the rest of the family does too. To be honest, your wife's sister is evil. You have reassured your wife of your love and faithfulness. Your wife is incredibly insecure about herself, so obviously a professional may be in order for her and yourself to talk to. You love your wife, so stand by her and be there for support. My in-laws definitely enable her behavior. She's the golden child. They brag about her constantly, even though my wife is literally a neuroscientist. Their mom was a pageant queen and she was their dad's much younger trophy wife. Honestly, we may have to go no contact with all of them. Absolutely. Their daughter assaulted you. That is an insane violation. The disrespect to both you and your lovely wife is off the charts. If her family doesn't see that, then it's time to throw them all away. You are a good husband. Keep having her back. You may have to be the one to finally push her to go no contact. It's for the best for both of your mental health. Good luck. Straight up tell your wife that your sister-in-law is a rotten, festering, soulless cretin on the inside, so it matters not her physical features. Also, your wife needs to no contact her dumb witch sister, probably years ago. She needs to block her number and go to therapy because her sister has been abusing her for years. This instance was merely the final chip on an already very, very cracked vase. It is shattered, and you do not have the glue she needs. A professional will. If you haven't, explain the situation in detail. Leave nothing out. Ask her why you would have immediately left if you were actually interested in her sister. Remind her this is her sister's MO, so she cannot be trusted. Her sister has some freaky jealousy of your wife. Maybe her intelligence or very striking beauty? No loving, caring sister repeatedly chases their sister's exes. She is so gross. Someone should tell her she is so gross, because she needs to know how nasty she's acting. But for real, get your wife to a therapist because Mary has messed her up with Mary's crappy behavior. So gross. So gross. Who heck wants D that's been in another family member? What the heck is wrong with Mary? Tell your wife that you're getting a restraining order against her sister for harassing you. That ugly POS is an absolute narcissist who thinks she's entitled to the world because of her looks. I might try to do this. A friend of mine pointed out that what she did was literal assault. I don't know how restraining orders work though. Will they actually do anything if it's just my word against hers? And now for the update. I got a few requests for updates, so here it is. I first want to thank everyone so much for your advice. It was extremely helpful and gave me a lot to think about. I'm especially thankful for the folks that asked me how I was doing. I realized that I have literally never had a chance to check in with myself after these things happen, and I've actually been holding a lot of frustration and resentment about it all. I've been harassed for years, and it has either been brushed off or it's been eclipsed by the impact it has on my wife. I don't blame her for it, but this has been a good lesson in me not burying my feelings for the sake of others, even for her. I also want to clarify a couple of things that came up. Several people ask about how my wife's family feel about all this, and I explained in a comment that her parents are toxic and treat Mary as the golden child, even though my wife is a freaking neuroscientist, amazingly talented musician, speaks 3 languages fluently and another 2 conversationally. My wife and her family are seriously the only people who don't seem to understand how exceptional she is. I remember meeting one of my wife's family friends and talking to them about her research, and they said, "Oh wow, her parents just told us she works at a university." Whereas my parents literally introduced her as the family genius to everyone. It makes me so freaking angry to think about how her a-hole family has stolen her shine her whole life. She's literally a Renaissance woman, but all they care about is looks and money. Some folks ask me why I would ever put myself in a situation alone with Mary, given everything she's done. I have no good answers for that, other than I never thought she would actually try to do anything. That possibility just didn't exist in my head. I realize now that I should have seen this would happen eventually, and that I should have been less concerned with keeping the peace and more concerned about shutting Mary's nonsense down before it escalated to this point. Hindsight is 2020. Anyway, on to the update. The night I posted, I told my wife that if she wanted to try to repair her relationship with her sister, I would respect that, but that I don't feel comfortable being around her for the foreseeable future. I said Mary has obviously been deeply jealous of my wife her whole life because she is a hollow, ugly person whose entire value has an expiration date, while my wife actually has substance. I said that I think her whole family is toxic and has done nothing but put her down her whole life, but that only she can decide whether she still wants them in her life. I also told my wife that while I don't blame her for her emotional reaction, her insecurity is something that she needs to work on for our relationship to be healthy. What Mary did was assault, and she's been harassing me like that for years. But I have consistently put aside my own feelings about this problem because of how it affects her, and that has prevented me from getting the support that I need to. I told her that her reaction only serves to punish herself and me for her sister's behavior, and there's no reason to give her that kind of power. I also told her something that a commenter said that really resonated with me, that the only people who have ever considered her second best are her and her family. Everyone else sees her for who she really is. She was crying the whole time and agreed that she needed to go to therapy to work on her insecurity. We were able to find a therapist who specializes in body image/self-esteem issues to work with her individually, and we're looking for a couples therapist too. My wife sent a message to her parents and sister that explained exactly what happened, and told them she would reach out to them if she ever feels ready to repair their relationship. We blocked all of them everywhere, but Mary has of course been spamming my family and our friends with nonsense, claiming I attacked her, I'm a drug addict, I mistreat my wife, all kinds of BS that thankfully nobody believes. My wife is still down in the dumps, but I can see that things are getting a little better. She's eating and sleeping more and she's cuddling with me in the mornings again, which is nice. Now, I'm planning a surprise getaway for us this weekend. We're going to one of our favorite places, and I'm going to wine and dine her and try to make her feel like the goddamn queen she is. I want to thank you all again for your help. You really helped me understand the severity of the problem. And again, thanks for helping me connect with my own feelings about all this. Y'all are the best. Mary has of course been spamming my family and our friends with nonsense, claiming I attacked her, I'm a drug addict, I mistreat my wife, all kinds of BS that thankfully nobody believes. I have a suggestion. Even though no one believes what Mary has been saying, it could be helpful for you and your wife in the long run to hire an attorney now, to send a strongly worded cease and desist letter to Mary. If Mary's been sending texts and voicemails to your family and friends, then you have some evidence of slander and libel. Shutting her actions down hard now could prevent her from escalating her actions in the future, just like she did in the past, where she tried to test and push her boundaries, which then escalated to her doing what she did. Yes, exactly this. Don't give them any ground to stand on. You and your wife need to stamp this out right now and build a boundary. She has proven she has zero boundaries, and you need to establish yours, or she will slowly over time push further and further back into your lives in an unhealthy manner. Think of it like this. She keeps pestering. One day, your wife is either feeling particularly weak or strong, and thinks she either should or can now open up that relationship again. Now your wife and her sister go back and forth and rebuild without you being aware. One day, you come home and find Mary sitting on your couch, and your wife starts pleading to hear her out. I can't tell you how many posts I have read that are exactly this. Do it now while the feeling is strong. You're an absolute legend. She's found herself another genius who knows how to navigate life without infantile drama. I wish you both nothing but the absolute best. The only genius thing I've ever done is marry her. I'm a pretty average dude, to be honest, so I have no idea how I snagged her. Sad to think her low self-esteem probably played a part, but I do work hard to be a good husband every day. She chose you because you're worth it, my guy. The way you speak about her makes it plain you're the king to her queen. Reign together and extricate yourselves from the ill-wishers. Last story. My male 27, girlfriend female 21, still being friends with someone female 22 who ruined our son's birth experience doesn't sit right with me. My son is 6 weeks old and being a father has been great, but actually becoming a father was hell, and it was all because of her best friend. My girlfriend has been best friends with her since middle school, so I understand a close bond, but this is someone that has been toxic time and time again. Ever since I've been dating my girlfriend, she has not liked me, not to mention she is a toxic person. It only got worse when my girlfriend got pregnant, and 2 weeks before our son was born, I told my girlfriend how I felt about her best friend, and my girlfriend told her best friend. I didn't mind she told her because I had valid points in how I felt, but it's what her best friend did after that is mind-boggling. Literally 3 days before my son was born, her best friend accused me of cheating, all because I went to a club. Now, I don't go clubbing as often as I used to, but this time I was not in the club to party. When I left the house, I told my girlfriend that I was going to the store and I did that. But then I received a call from my friend that he lost his wallet at a club, so I went to go help him look for it. I didn't even know she saw me there, because I think I stayed there for 15 to 20 minutes. We ended up finding the wallet and I went home. Next morning, my girlfriend wakes me up showing me text messages from her best friend with pictures that I was at a club, and text messages accusing me of kissing other girls, leaving with one, being dishonest, etc. I've never been more flabbergasted. Girlfriend goes into labor and I was one of her support people, but you could just tell she was disgusted with me, and it was an awful feeling. Her friend even has the audacity to tell the nurses and doctors that I cheated. Although a beautiful experience, it was ruined due to someone's pettiness. Then about a week later, her friend admitted to lying and my girlfriend dropped her, but now they're friends again. This is someone who has slandered my name time after time. It hurts me even if it means hurting her own best friend. I feel very uncomfortable with the fact that they are friends again, after everything that happened, and I'm thinking about what I want to do. I would have a hard time dealing with that myself. About a week later, her friend admitted to lying and my girlfriend dropped her, but now they are friends again. This is someone who made an attempt to sabotage your marriage, throwing baseless cheating accusations for the sole purpose to disrupt your relationship. I say marriage because you two are practically at this point. Not only did it jeopardize your relationship, but it also jeopardized your child's potential of having a two-parent home. That poor kid, robbed of a healthier family upbringing because of a reckless person due to a lie. I am really bothered by this the more I think about it. I don't understand how your girlfriend can just accept this with no consequences for her friend. Anyone who made an attempt to break my marriage and risk my child's potential for a better life, they're cut off without hesitation. Because she says they've been friends for 10 years, and she's like her sister and all this other stuff. I don't get it. She's happy to have a close relationship with someone who would treat her so badly without a second thought. Friend is obviously jealous of your relationship. It's surprising me too. I'm not trying to be a prick, but I'm assuming you started dating your girlfriend when she was like 18/19, unless you got her pregnant right away. I'm not surprised she's immature. She's fresh out of high school with little adult experiences. I highly doubt this situation gets better. She was 20 when we started dating. I'm not accusing her of being immature. I'm just saying that I wish she would realize that her friend does really shady stuff that true friends wouldn't do. This isn't the only instance where her friend has done anything like this. I just thought that this time she'd truly see what her friend is about. I personally could never become friends with someone that ruins what is supposed to be one of the best days of my life. Imagine you're 9 months pregnant and you find out your boyfriend is cheating on you. That has to be one of the crappiest feelings in the world. She saw how my girlfriend was literally crying from that on the delivery bed when we were talking about me cheating, but still chose not to say anything until she was caught in a lie. It actually makes me sick talking about it. All I'm saying that just because you're friends with someone for a long time does not mean they have your best interest in mind. Update. Am I the a-hole for no longer bringing dinner for my wife after she claimed I never cook? Original post. I work at a nice restaurant as a cook, and every day when I get off from work, I always cook dinner for my wife and our 2 kids, 8 male and 6 female, at a restaurant before coming home. The only time I don't cook for them are on weekends when I'm off. That's when my wife does the cooking. We usually trade off who makes breakfast and lunch for the kids every other day, but for the week I'm always the one bringing home dinner. Weekends, we sometimes get together with friends and they come over to the house. My wife usually cooks, and I help set the table/clean afterwards. One of her friends, Stacy, asked how come I never do any of the cooking, and it is always on my wife all the time making meals for the kids, especially when I'm a cook myself. Instead of correcting her, my wife sort of laughed and went along with it, making jokes about, you know how it is. And Stacy laughed because her ex-husband was the same way, and then sort of ripped on me in a joking way, how I better buck up before I became an ex too. My wife just said, well, let's see if he actually listens and starts cooking for once. Joking about all the time I spend in the kitchen at work but won't do the same at home. It really ticked me off. I'm not the husband that just doesn't do anything after I'm home from work. I cook food for her and the kids at work. And on top of that, I make separate dishes for each of them, what she wants and what the kids want. All that after standing on my feet all day. We talked about it once they left, because I don't appreciate being told I'm not doing something she knows for a fact I do. She didn't want to apologize for it because it was all just to be a funny joke. Even after telling her about how it hurt my feelings being put down like that. My wife said she felt like she has to go along with the joke so there wouldn't be any awkward vibes, whatever that means. But I said, fine, if she can't apologize for something that was mean just so she could laugh along with her friends, then I won't keep doing something she already claims I don't do. And for the past week, I've only brought home dinner for our kids, and she's had to make her own food. She's mad that I'm refusing to feed her over what happened, instead of letting it go. But I can't help but feel mad about being made fun of like that, when I'm busting my butt to provide for my family, and still making sure they have food on the table every evening. She just thinks I'm an a-hole for how I'm reacting, when she's already tired at the end of the day, but still having to make food for herself. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. Your wife missed a great opportunity to boast on you, all for acceptance by others who have nothing invested in your relationship. Not even to boast though would have felt nice, but at least say, hey, you're wrong, not just go along with it. As a stay-at-home mom who has a significant other who actually does things for himself and around the house, I've basically had this conversation before. All she had to say is, actually, I don't have that problem. He's a responsible adult and pulls his share. I don't get why she had to lie to keep it from being awkward. I'm sure it was awkward already. Not the a-hole. Your spouse is supposed to be your partner in everything in life. The person who always has your back like you always have theirs. She threw you directly under the bus for the sake of not creating waves with her friend. Then when you told her you didn't find her comments at all funny and quite hurtful that she let someone else believe you're a deadbeat, she blew you off. So, she can make her own dinner until she sincerely apologizes and acknowledges that your contribution to the family of cooking dinner during the week is important. I feel like it was an excuse to worry about making waves. I don't understand why actually cooks during the week would create an awkward moment. If anything, it's the opposite. If I was the friend complaining about my horrible ex-husband who never helped, and my friend lied to me about how she can relate because her husband doesn't contribute, I would be pretty angry to find out she actually has an amazing husband who always helps her out. Like, I would be a bit hurt that she decided to lie and act like she's dealing with the same crap I am, when in reality, her husband is doing a lot of work to help her out. Now for the update. At first, wasn't going to post an update, but since things have gotten better, why not? I didn't show my wife this post like some suggested until a few days later, but before that, she wanted to talk before bed. And she apologized for how she's been behaving with me when she made those jokes and let her friends say things about me, then how she was acting afterwards. In reality, she knew she did wrong, but when I called her out, it made her defensive, and she realizes how she was acting like a child after knowing how much I do for our family. That's when I showed her the post and opened up about something that was mentioned by me in my comments. How it really hit a nerve for me, making it seem like I'm a lousy father/husband when my dad was exactly that as he abandoned me and my mom. She knows how important it is for me to be as involved as possible when our kids were born because I never wanted to be like him. So her making it seem like that's how I am brought up some feelings. Telling her this really made her feel like she messed up big time. She wouldn't stop apologizing. She promised she'd never put me down that way. And honestly, I think she's shown that she meant her apology. For a week, she wanted to be the one making dinner for everyone, so I'd have some time to relax after work. It was nice, but also missed making meals for my family. Cooking for my kids is my own way of expressing my love for them, so we're back to that as well. I feel like my wife has more than shown how sorry she is, and appreciates what I also do for this family. Last time we had lunch with her friend a few days ago on my day off, she even brought it up. As mad as I was when it happened, it's nice to see she's made an effort to make amends. The support I got from here was very sweet. Appreciate feeling heard when it felt like my wife wasn't at a time. I'm really glad things work out for you regarding this. Cooking is definitely my way of showing love to those I care about as well. Keep being a great father and continue what you do regarding your cooking. Thank you. My family always loved my cooking, so knowing they enjoy something I made on top of keeping them fed is always a nice reward for me. Glad to see another wonderful example of communication and empathy solving the base issue. It's great that your wife was able to understand the underlying reasons behind why her comments were so hurtful to you, since that will help her consider her words before responding in future instances. I think she did a very normal human thing, which is to try to sympathize with the person who's hurting around you by agreeing with her general complaints. It's understandable because you don't want to sound like you're gloating at a person in that situation, but it can also cast a negative shadow on a sad person's recovery. If your wife has trouble with that kind of thing, you could recommend to her that she paint her comments about you as proof that good men do exist out there, if her friends take the time to look for them. It makes you feel good, it makes your wife feel good, and it gives a sad friend hope for a future relationship, as compared to despairing that no man/woman will ever truly love me. I think this is a communication issue. The issue was resolved because the person in the wrong admitted they were wrong and genuinely apologized and made it up to the person they wronged. Oftentimes, things don't get resolved no matter how the two parties communicate, because the one in the wrong doesn't want to admit they were wrong. Did she set the record straight with Stacy? Yes, she did. Good, because apologies behind closed doors are okay. But if her friends continue to make fun of you because she didn't set them straight, that's tough. Next story. Am I the a-hole for calling my son inconsiderate? I, 46 female, have twins, 19 males, and another son, 16 male. My youngest son loves to cook and bake. To him, it's a source of relaxation. Alfredo, burgers, pizza, you name it. Heck, even a whole cake he can make it. Everyone who's met him knows he's a fantastic cook. However, he prefers to only cook for himself and gets really annoyed when my twins walk in on him cooking and ask him to make them food as well. He'll end up doing it, but he does it very begrudgingly and usually gives them a much smaller portion than his own serving, which my twins don't like. They both have jobs and will sometimes use their job money to buy us all a little fast food, so they find it really upsetting how their younger brother never returns the favor by primarily cooking for himself. The other day, neither of my twins had class and weren't really in the mood for the food that we had in the house. My son came back from school and decided to make himself some banana pudding. When my twins asked for some as well, he told them they could just make it themselves and that the ingredients were all still there. My son put the banana pudding in the fridge and went to go take a shower while it was chilling. When he came back down, he saw that my twins had eaten it all, and this really upset him. When he told me about the situation, I confronted the twins, to which they said it was really rude for him to only make something for himself knowing that they were hungry as well. And like he said, he could always make some more. So I told my son that while they shouldn't have eaten his food, they were right, and he was very inconsiderate. My son replied that it's not fair how he gets back from school and is expected to make food for his older siblings, that they can just get a cookbook and learn how to make things for themselves. I told my son that if he's not going to cook for everybody, then he can't cook anymore. He's been pretty moody ever since. Obviously, his brothers shouldn't have eaten his food, but it takes no effort to just make a larger portion of the food he's cooking so that everybody can have it. My husband thinks I'm in the right, but I'm really not happy with how things are right now between my children. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. I told my son that if he's not going to cook for everybody, then he can't cook anymore. You're the a-hole. You are not entitled to have your 16-year-old cook for the whole family every time he wants to cook. If this is a hobby that he enjoys, good for him. You and your other children are not an automatic beneficiary. And your twins eat all of his pudding? Major a-hole move. Did you make them make another batch to replace the one they ate? Or did you just let it slide and go on to punish 16-year-old? Give your head a shake. If you want him to cook for you, then maybe you should assign a night of the week that each of your kids be responsible to feed a family, whether it be cooking or bringing home food. Then it's fair. Yeah, or you could make them pay money if he cooks for them. I mean, if it was done in a fair and structured way like once a week, having him cook for everyone wouldn't be an unreasonable chore, given that they'll sometimes buy food and is using a provided kitchen and ingredients. But making it spontaneous and all-consuming, like make them something every time, it looks like she's just playing favorites. You're the a-hole. Why should your twins endlessly benefit from your 16-year-old's work? I hope he gets himself into a professional kitchen and thrives. He's not their servant. Are they doing his laundry? His other chores? Do they clean up the kitchen afterwards? That would be more equitable. What are they doing in return? Do you seriously think them buying something fast food is the same as all the work involved in making a meal? If he finds cooking and baking relaxing, he shouldn't do it professionally unless he really, really wants to. That's a good way to ruin a hobby. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents I don't want kids because I'm scared they will turn out like my brother? My older brother is unemployed, had almost always been unemployed, and has no intention to ever work. His life plan is to live off of our mother until she dies. Then our father, if he happens to live longer, then live off his inheritance. Or maybe he will try to mooch off of another relative. I don't know. Our parents have tried to get him to work. They did everything in their power to arrange him job positions where he didn't even have to interview. But no, he always comes up with an excuse to why that job is not good enough for him. He's my brother, so I love him of course, but at the same time, I'm ashamed of him and with how his actions hurt our parents. I turned 30 this week, and we celebrated it with my family yesterday. My mom said she was 30 when she had me and asked me when my husband and I will have kids. I told her I'm not sure if I'm up to the job. Raising children seems too difficult to me. She asked what I meant, and I told her that I don't think I would be able to properly parent a child, correct their behaviors, and deal with them possibly not living up to my expectations, which is not fair to the child either. She pressed further and my father joined in, acting like they don't understand what I mean, up until I told them that I'm afraid my child would turn out like my brother, for example, and I don't think I could deal with that. They got quiet for a second, and I saw that they finally understood what I meant. The problem was that, even though my brother was having a different conversation with one of our cousins, he heard what I said, looked at me, said nice, and walked out. Our parents said that I shouldn't have said what I said, even though they admit they pressured me to explain and understand my concerns, because it's already really hard to get my brother to come to family events, and now I made it even worse, and they want me to apologize to him. I didn't mean for him to hear that, and I feel bad. But seriously, he's a 34-year-old man refusing to get a job. I think it's time we stop cuddling him. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your brother is a non-functional mooch, unless there is something else going on. Your parents pressed the issue. By the way, they're enablers. It's ridiculous. My brother-in-law was also an unemployed mooch living with mommy from age 35 to 50. I told my husband that the brother-in-law is perfectly capable. Brother-in-law then met a gal who kicked his butt into shape, and he got a job and got married. The enabling is a real problem. Opie's parents did fail her brother, but the brother is at fault as well. It's a phenomenon called failure to launch, and Opie's parents are definitely enabling it by not pushing him out of the nest, so to speak. Not the a-hole. Pure and simple. Your life, your choice. Raising kids is a lot of work. I have 4. Trust me. Worst thing for a child is having a parent that's not ready to commit the parent's life to raising a child. Now, if you want a child but simply are afraid of XYZ, let me comfort you. Every child is different. Your parents are enabling your brother, but that doesn't have to be you and your child. It's quite possible you won't have the same challenges with your child your parents have with your brother. Make no mistakes. There will be challenges. 99% chance they'll have their own unique twist and making your life interesting however. I can concur. All 3 of the kids my parents raised turned out to be screwed up in completely different ways that are combated with completely different strategies. 2 out of 3 of us, despite facing a ton of challenges and having a lot wrong with us well into adulthood, have also found our own versions of success. One of us is a pseudo-Nazi who wriggled out of an arson charge, but part of parenting is accepting that your kid might turn out to be a bad person for reasons beyond your control. Not the a-hole. Is it the US? If so, there's a thing called eviction. Unless he's able to pay for his own food and place to live, he's not really doing anything useful. And I totally agree. Raising kids is a difficult thing to do. Same reason I don't have kids. I just don't want to take that burden. My brother made it clear in the past that if they kicked him out, he would just go to our maternal grandparents who would take care of him. Our parents didn't want to burden the grandparents, so they never attempted to stop providing for him. Then, our grandparents both died last year within a few months from each other. But now my parents believe he couldn't take care of himself and would just become homeless if they kicked him out. My dad especially said he couldn't live with that. He couldn't make his son homeless. I tried suggesting they tell him that they will cut him out of their will if he doesn't get a job. But my dad says that wouldn't work, because my brother would call his bluff. Am I the a-hole dad gave the business to brother so I left? With updates. Original story. My older brother, 30 male, went to university and then worked in the city as an accountant. I, 27 male, started to work for my dad as a plumber at 15 and went to college to get my qualifications in plumbing and gas. About the time COVID started, my brother moved back from the city and started working for my dad, 55 male, in accounting. My dad has been unwell for the last 4 years due to asbestosis. It has been really hard on the family and he is getting worse, but is still living life. I have been running the business for the last 2 years. We have expanded and now have 50 vans in the fleet, and 1 qualified and 1 trainee allocated to each van. Pandemic was hard in the beginning, but we have bounced back. My dad still works on tools with me on Fridays, half day, then back to my place for some beers. Friday is the only day I'm on tools now as I'm doing everything to run the business. Well, last month he told the family he is stepping down from the business due to health and wants to spend more time with my mother and is giving the business to my brother and for me to step down from acting CEO. This upsets me. I've been with the business for 12 years. At the beginning, it was only me and my dad. My brother never wanted to be in the business and said it was not worth his time. And now he's the boss. And I've been dumped back to a heating engineer with £20,000 pay cut. Doesn't even have any clue what we do or how to do it. I spoke to my dad and he told me that my brother deserves it for all he has done, that he has a family and I don't, and that he went to uni. A lot of the workers are upset about the decision and have told me they will go where I go. I told my dad that if that is how he feels, then I will leave and start my own business. I have not spoken to my dad or brother since, and I have told them to never contact me. For the last month, I've had thousands of calls and messages from family saying some very hurtful things and telling me I'm ungrateful for what I have. So, am I the a-hole? Edit. I want to say thank you to everyone for your kind words. There's so many to reply to and I will do my best to thank you all. To hear my father tell me in his own way he doesn't think I'm good enough was hard. And for my family to take his and my brother's side was even harder. In the morning, I will contact the large clients I've worked with over the last 6 years. I know we had some site postponed due to the bug, big money, and we'll try to take them over. I have 20 of my colleagues wishing to come work for me. I've saved nearly all of my money I have earned over the last 12 years, so I think I have enough to get myself on my feet. Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Not the a-hole. I am so sorry. Hopefully your new business is successful. Thanks, but feel bad for taking business away from family. You shouldn't. They took the business away from family, not just from you, but from all the loyal employees who don't want to work with an inexperienced CEO. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole at all. At least your father could have split business 50-50. Brother in charge of accounting side, you in charge of production. I would make that offer back. If father refuses, I would cut contact and block relatives. I would go start my own business and never look back. Brother turned back on family business while you worked yourself off to build it. To be honest, that's what I thought was going to happen, and was happy when my brother came back to be one big family company. I talked to my father, but my brother has always been the golden child. Not today, hell at all. Not only did you get screwed out of a business that should have at least been split between you got a huge pay cut to go with it. The fact that your father allowed that to happen shows how he feels about you versus your brother. I am sorry, but I hope you run your brother out of business. Thank you. The hardest part is that my brother signed off on the pay cut. I was still on a very good wage, but that was the last dagger to the heart. I always thought my father would split the business between us, not leave me on the sideline after everything I did for it. Now for the first update. I want to inform everyone that I'm not starting a business to destroy my brother. As much as I want to, I've spent almost 13 years building it, and I don't want to see anyone out of a job or for the business to die. It's about 5 a.m. in England. You have all helped me so much. I will be going over to talk to my father about 8 a.m. and take him out for breakfast and talk. I'm not sure if I will get a proper answer from him, but I love my family and want my future kids to know them. I will update after the events of later today. Second update. As I said in one of the comments, I believe my family had found my post, and they did. This morning, when I arrived at my parents' house, my mom opened the door and looked like she had been crying a lot. My dad came over to talk to me and we went out for breakfast. He didn't say a word on the way there when we arrived. When on the way back, he asked if we could pull over and talk. I can honestly say this was the first time I saw my dad cry. I asked why he did this to me. He said doesn't know. I kept pushing and he finally told me he owed it to my brother for not being about for him as much as me when we were growing up. And there were times my brother needed him, but we were working. I couldn't believe it. After 12 years of hard work, that was his reasoning? I told my father I had spent half my life working to do everything for the business, and how he threw me to the side just because his son came back hurts me more than I could explain. He told me he knows, as they had been shown the post I put up. To my surprise, he wasn't mad, but he seemed remorseful. He told me my mother has been in pieces after reading the comments about how bad she treated me, and thinks I will never talk to them again. My dad told me after reading it all, he realized he should have split the business between us, as it will need both of us to keep progressing, and apologized for me for never telling me how proud he was of everything I had done, and thought I know how proud he was. But my brother has full control and my father has no say anymore, and my brother would never go 50-50. He told me he wants me to go back as my brother will need me. I told him that's not my problem anymore. After he demoted me and cut my pay, I tried to make it work for 3 weeks, but my brother wouldn't listen. Didn't believe I know what I was talking about, telling me he knows how to run a business. So I left. Why work my butt off there when I could do the same work and make more money for myself? My dad broke down, said that he had destroyed the family and should never have done what he did. I don't understand why it took this long to realize I was a valuable piece in the company. Third update. As I said, I have had a couple of Zoom calls with some clients today, and they have gone very well. I have been informed that they will all be sending signed proposal letters for the up-and-coming work. Lucky the site start dates don't clash. That was one of the main things I was worried about. 3 of my colleagues have now left the business and have spoken to my dad informing him about why they left, and that they will be coming to work with me of their own choice. To hear them tell me this meant a lot. They have all between 5 to 10 years more experience in the industry. At the moment, we have all we need to start a new business with the 3 vans I own and tools I have built up over the years. I am looking forward to the new venture in my life and can't wait to share this with my children when I have them. Then I received a call from my father asking me to come over for dinner. I wasn't sure at first, but thought it was probably a step in the right direction. Upon arrival, my whole family was there. I went in and the atmosphere dropped. My mom wouldn't look at me, and my brother just sat there acting as if I didn't exist. My dad came to ask me and my brother to come into his office. He started to ask when I was going to return to the company, as they need me in early Monday morning. I could not even believe what I was hearing. I told them both I'm not coming back and have started my own business. And what does he mean we? You gave the business to him, my brother. My brother started to lose his temper, telling me if I cared about the company, why would I leave? I have some very choice words. before telling him that I have always cared for the company and spent 12 years of my life working to make it successful. Unlike him, who swans in and takes all the glory, and that I will not sit there and be treated like that. I told my brother to buzz off, so I could talk to Dad. I asked what was this morning all about, telling me sorry but then expects me to go running back? He couldn't even look me in the eye, so I left, said goodbye to my cousin, nieces, and nephews and walked out. I've been writing for about 3 hours on and off coming back on here to talk to people. I just want to say thank you to everyone for the personal message, comments, rewards, and all the kind words and encouragement. I'll try and message everyone, but I'm exhausted and will most likely fall asleep. Fourth update. Sorry it's been a while. I've had a lot going on in the last couple of weeks, so I'll try to explain the most I can. So the new business is going very well. We have a lot of work coming in and making good money. At the end of the year, I will be looking at expanding, so very happy with that. Me and my fiancé are very happy. She's very busy planning the wedding of her dreams. She wants me to wear a suit, but tough luck, I'll be in my kilt. I couldn't be happier that I'm right now waking up to her every day. She's there for me no matter what. It has been my rock through everything. Then my family. My father and brother still refuse to talk to me, and they have told me they will not be attending the wedding, even though they haven't been invited. My mother has called my fiancé but hasn't said much, only to ask about wedding stuff and will not talk to me. My fiancé's family have been amazing. My soon-to-be-in-laws have been helping with the wedding and everything else, and I'm extremely thankful for everything they have done for us. My other family have now backed off and apologized and want to make amends for everything that was said. Myself and my fiancé are set to have our wedding in November. We sat down together and have decided to try to have children after we are married. We are both excited to be parents. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not splitting the control of my business to my children equally? Hi, 65-year-old electrician from Germany here. I plan to settle down, traveling with my wife, 65, and spoiling our grandchildren for the rest of our lives. I had built up a small business with now 23 employees. My son Alexander, 36, will take control of it. I have also 2 daughters in which I'm proud of. Laura, 34, has studied biochemistry and has her master's degree. Marie, 30, became a middle school teacher in mathematics and sports. I've recently spoken about my plan at the family gathering. Laura totally agreed to it, but Marie accused me of favoritism. That is not true. I love every one of my children equally, but my son decided to make a training on my side as he graduated. Abitur, similar to high school. Additionally, he got a master's license as electrician. So we worked nearly 17 years together. Also, he has the ability to run our business and our employees respect him. I told my daughter the points above, but she said I was always closer to my son as to my daughters. Sadly, I have to admit it is kind of true, but how isn't it possible if I work all day together with my son? He's also my colleague and my right hand at work. My wife Laura and Alexander signed with me, so I need an outside opinion in here. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Edited to add. Many of you ask, and here are some answers. Alexander will become the owner. I will be totally out of it. As he started to work with me, we were only 6 people, and as he got his master's license, he trained 7 of our employees. We Germans say he was passionate about it, and he sacrificed a lot. My daughters were offered to work with me and earned money in school holidays on my side, but as they graduated, they had their own career plans which my wife and I have supported, financially and emotionally. Our editor sent a link to another story which I have read, and now I'm pretty sure I can leave the business only to my son. I am thankful for your replies, and I had read almost every one of them. I just think about it if I should benefit my daughters on my will in exchange. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You are giving your electrician business to the electrician who has worked there for 17 years. Your employees would think you are the a-hole if you handed control over to someone with no experience other than being related. Reminds me of that AITA from a few weeks back, where daddy gave the business to the son he did work with and destroyed the family, but in reverse. Hard work should be rewarded. Not the a-hole. Your son has invested his time and energy in the business and helped you make it a success, no doubt. And all of your reasons are also correct. By leaving the business to your son, you're also trying to ensure that the workers and their families also have a long-term future with the business, as your son is best placed to keep the company running successfully. Also, it's your business and your money, and therefore you're right to leave it to whoever you want to. Good luck. German law might disagree in the last part. OP should definitely check with a lawyer because there can be certain costs to compensate his other kids when he gifts the company to only one child. Not Dayhall. That's just sensible business. Marie likely doesn't have much experience in this industry or in running a business. Your son is most qualified and knows the ins and outs after working with you for 17 years. It sounds like Marie's more bitter about Alexander's close relationship with you rather than the handover of the business. Marie could have chosen to be an electrician. Both of them could have. Now, for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not splitting my inheritance so my cousins and I can have an equal amount? Basically what the title says. My paternal grandma died when I, 20 female, was 3 and my cousins Connor, 24 male, and Olivia, 20 female, were 7 and 4 respectively. In her will, my grandmother left all her money to us grandchildren. Obviously, she didn't know how many children my dad and uncle would end up having, so her will stated that half her money would be split evenly between my uncle's children, and the other half would be split evenly between my dad's children. I'm an only child, so I don't have to split the money with siblings. We get access to the money in our 21st birthday, so Connor has already had his. Olivia's birthday is next month, and mine is in 7 months. My uncle, Connor, and Olivia think that it's unfair that I'm getting more money than they are. When I was 17 and Connor was turning 21, they asked my parents to split my share of the money so we would all get 33%. My parents said no because it wasn't their money, and that I should be the only one who gets to decide what to do with the money after I get access to it. Since then, they've brought it up a couple of times a year, but as it's getting closer to Olivia's birthday, they've started bringing it up more often. They've even roped in members of our extended family to harass me about it through emails and texts. They say that I'm being selfish but not splitting the money evenly with them, that it's unfair for me to get more money. They also like to bring up the fact that my parents have jobs with higher salaries than their parents, and being an only child meant that I got more stuff growing up. Which I admit is partially true. I went to private school, I did a lot of extracurriculars, went on holiday abroad at least once a year. At the same time, I didn't get everything that I asked for growing up. And my parents refused to buy me a car when I was 17. I had to buy my own car, whereas their parents did buy them a car. My dad's aunt also constantly told my uncle that my dad was the favorite child, which has left my uncle with a chip on his shoulder, and is using me getting more money to support that idea. I don't want to split the money because it's my money. The money was left to the children of my dad, and it's not my fault that my parents only had me. My parents also taught me how to manage my money, so I plan to put most of the money from my grandma in a lifetime ISA, use some of it to go traveling after university before starting work, a weekend trip to New York for me and my friends for my 21st birthday, and to invest the rest. So it's not like I'm planning on blowing it all in one go. Also, Connor and Olivia's share is still a lot of money each. It's more than most people inherit, and more money than most people have access to in their early 20s. Also, Connor has already blown through most of his money in the last 3 years on partying, traveling in cars, so I don't see why I should have to sacrifice some of my inheritance to make up for the fact that he's wasted most of his. So, am I the a-hole? Edit. Seeing as I've been sent messages about it, I thought I'd let everyone know that my grandma did not exclude my dad and uncle. She only left the money that was in her various bank accounts to the grandchildren. The rest of her assets, such as property, jewelry, her art collection, investment portfolio, etc., was left to them. I've been asked how much money there is in total. I don't really feel comfortable saying the exact amount, but it's safe to say that even the 25% share is fractions of £1 million. Not Dayhall. Your uncle and cousin are being entitled. Your grandmother divided her assets as she wished, and no one has the right to question it. This. You are following her will. What would have happened if you had 4 siblings? Do you honestly think they would split their money? Not Dayhall. Not Dayhall. Not unfair at all. Your grandma split it up fairly between her children's children. When they tell you that you're being selfish, fire back with, you're being greedy. You have no legal claim to my inheritance. If they want more money, they can go earn it. Many people go through life never receiving any kind of inheritance. You don't have to justify yourself here. You're honoring your grandma's wishes exactly as her will was laid out. Anyone who has a problem with it can go complain about it at her grave. Not Dayhall. This is a fair but not equal situation. Your grandmother was very fair by splitting 50-50 to each side of her 2 sons' descendants. The situation between the cousins isn't equal for obvious reasons. Don't give them any money because if the roles were reversed, they wouldn't give you a dime extra. My gran actually did this. She left most of her money to my uncles, but had a clause that said that if they had died, then the money would go to their kids instead. One uncle only had one child, the other one had two. So essentially, if one of my uncles had died, it would have been 25-25-50. The kids are looking at it as though they are entitled to the entire pot, but actually they're entitled to their share of 50% of it.